cover here today.
And we're back. And Tom Gibson, your host, and Dwight, Lilly, to my far left, Kenny Bent, to my immediate left, and we were discussing water rights, and we're going to get into the real versus paper water rights and what they mean.
Well, I think what most people understand, when they hear water rights, starts getting confusing right from that point on. Domestic wells do not have what you call water rights. What they have is an allocation, more or less by statute guaranteed to them at the well. Water rights, more or less, as you're implied when you hear them, are basically paper rights to water. Over the years, they've been deemed real property, and they're actually a speculative investment vehicle. Actually, they can be traded, moved around the valley. They can't be moved out of the basin, but they can be moved anywhere around, and the manner of use can change, and everything pretty much the same, except the date of issuance of that paper. There again, like I said, with a domestic well, you have to realize that in prior rulings, and just the whole concept of it is that water is part of the soil. And the owner of the property doesn't really own the water, the property owns the water. As the owner, you're the tenant and can use that allocation up to what it is 2 acre-feet today. But anyway, that's just kind of to clarify the difference between them, because the domestic well doesn't necessarily have any water rights unless you've bought additional ones for it.
Well, I think there's another point too that goes into that because you have the paper right, you have to maintain that you're going to beneficially use it. And what's transpired, Tom, is that every 4 years, the state water engineer keeps extending the time that the people that are holding on to the paper water rights have to put it to beneficial use. Because the doctrine also says, the state water doctrine, if you don't use the water,
right, you lose
then you relinquish it to the state. So in the valley here, there's about 127 to somewhere $137 million worth of paper water rights that the state water engineer's office has allowed to be continually rolled over every 4 years because of some perceived time in the future that they would be able to put that to use. And those paper water rights have no water backing them up. The water is already being used by current utility owners, users, and water well users. So it's rights to water that, like, as Ken said, is like an investment vehicle, but there's no way to put it to beneficial use, yet they keep holding on to it. And now, because of the pressure to want to continue to develop, the plan, and Kenny can get into the plan here in a minute, the state water engineer has come to Pahrump, to Nye County, and said, we want you to put a plan together how you can manage your water and conserve it. Well, the plan is a rigged plan. The committee that was formed to develop the plan is made up of who? There's 7 members, 4 of them are utility and water rights owners that control the votes on what comes up in the plan. So we started off developing this plan. There was public meetings on it. There were hundreds of items suggested that could make a workable plan. But anything that had to do with affecting development or their water rights, they would throw out no, we don't want that. So they've come up with this watered down plan that has nothing in it that would, for instance, put a moratorium on building until we found more water. One of the items in there is to go import water, but the fee, I heard that just the pipe alone to go to another area to bring any more water here is $170 million worth of pipe. Where are we going to come up with $170 million? So that item in that plan is just a farce. But again, even if you wanted to build on your property right now, where are you going to get the water? Well, then you're going to take it away from me, the water that I'm using it from my well right now. Because if you have a gallon jug and you pour a gallon's worth of water in it, that's it, it's full. You can't get more into the jug. You can't take more out of a gallon jug than 1 gallon of water. And they're attempting to take that gallon of water, which would make up the water well water underneath our ground, and give us a fourth of that and take the other 3/4 of the gallon, the other 3/4,
And
and
use-
build new houses and developments with it.
Well, they need to prop up the paper water rights with the real water, and in order to do that, they
Right.
need to move more of it away from us.
Exactly.
But I hate the word they because they is very
well,
amorphous.
I hate
Who's
using
they?
any names because I don't. But I call them special interest on everything I write in my radio program. It's people that are developers, it's realtors, it's the movers and shakers out there that have. Okay, for people don't think that there's political pressure applied to the commissioners and that to go along with these plans. Then I'll sell them a piece of the Brooklyn Bridge. There are extremely wealthy people that control development interests. They have subdivisions that have been approved by the commissioners. Heck, the commissioners over the years have approved subdivisions for thousands of houses right here in Pahrump with no water they just rubber stamp, I guess, the applications that go through the planning department. They're signed off on the commissioners. And then because they haven't been built out and those development agreements expire, the commissioners go right ahead and extend it. I believe they've been extended for 20 years or something now. Still, there's no water. There is no more water. There's no river that's going to come flowing through here anytime soon. And so in my opinion, the logical step in that plan that they're putting together is to put a moratorium on any more big build-outs until they find another source of water. I don't know where that's going to come. Do you have any idea, Ken?
How about
Bring some
It's
over.
my water that's going to come from.
the
And
melting,
that's
the
why I've
melting
been
of the
in this battle.
poles?
See,
Due to global warming.
This is
Well,
patently unfair, Tom.
I think-
to take private well owners' water away from them, sell them. Okay, let's back up. Bait you into coming into the county, which is what happened to me and my wife, because you told me I had an ocean of water underneath there. Sell me property and tell me that I had two acre-feet of water to use, and because you told me there was an ocean of water underneath here, that would be into perpetuity. And then, after I've paid thousands of dollars in landscaping, but had put animals in and that, you come back and say, oh, guess what? That was a big lie. That really doesn't exist. But here's the kicker. Now I'm going to take 3/4 of your water that you've been using away from you. I don't care about what that affects your value of your property or the investment you have. I want that because I want to go build more houses and scam more people to come in here. And that's the bottom line. That's what upsets me. It's patently unfair, and I believe it's illegal.
Yeah, well, actually, I think you asked a very pertinent question, and I think some people would like to know the makeup of the board itself. We have Utilities Inc., Wendy Barnett, representing their interest, and she's touted as being a domestic well owner, but yet she's representing a corporation that has over $85 million worth of water rights, easily 28,000 acre-feet of water. You have Lenny Badger, who represents the focus group for desert utilities, and they're holding over 7,000 acre-feet of water. And of course, the Gregory Hafen, who's the chair of the board, that most people are familiar with the Pahrump utilities and the Artesia development, Cottonwood development, and whatnot. And these are voting members on the board. There's one other gentleman that does have some water rights and does some of the construction work for one of the utilities. And then, of course, one of the other people has been involved with his Hanson County contracts, various ones in the back. There's really only two people that are representing the interest of the people, the domestic well owners and the community in general, for just the general interest of the people that moved here. And that would be Mr. Greg Dan, and then it was Christian Benson, and he just resigned last week, largely to, so I could
Out of
sit back on
disgust.
the board. I've been an alternate of that board all along. It's been 20 months, and this plan more or less has been developed right from the beginning, and we've just gone along and hoorah'd it through. So there hasn't been much conversation of going outside of the items that are actually in the plan.
And this board that you're discussing is made up of people who have corporate interests that are adverse to property owners and their wells Is that correct?
Yes, and the thing is, actually in open meeting law, by law, you can't be paid to be on a board. And this is a really interesting area because we have at least 3 of them on there representing the interest of the utility companies that are on salary. And I think really, if it came right down to it, if there was to be a loss on that corporate side, that some of these people may even lose their job. So it's a very precarious thing what the pressure is. And like I said, the fact whether you have a domestic well or not, if I had a domestic well and that I had $6,000 and then I had $85 million worth of water right, I think my interest would be in protecting that wealth.
Okay, now, how does the average well owner or soon-to-be well owner in this town protect his or her rights or interests? Who do they go to? Because obviously there's power in numbers. You need, is it a commissioner they want to go to? Is it a local neighborhood?
Well, I can answer that question if you want, because the commissioners seem to be fine with the efforts of the developers, utility companies, and this phony board that was set up to form a plan. From what and how why I say that is because it's how they vote on the issues. What happened a couple of years ago was we formed a private well owners co-op here in Pahrump as an effort to have some type of voice in all of this, and we advertise it, and we have a membership, and that membership is what has fueled the fight against the legislation. It's ongoing. There's a meeting coming up, I believe, on the 20th of this month over at the Moose Lodge. We have our meetings down there, and we organize it. It's education, educating people about water wells, maintenance of them, and so forth.
But they have no seat on this board.
They don't have a seat, and in fact, at the last meeting, there was the crowd, and it was an overflowing crowd at the meeting where there was a joint meeting between the Nye County Water District Governing Board and this board, this advisory board made up of all the special interests. I keep saying special interests because that's exactly what they are and how they vote on every issue. They're lockstep. There's not going to be any representation in this water plan as long as that is controlled by special interest and the Board of County Commissioners continue to allow it to go forth that way. And the more that happens, this last meeting we had, the place was completely packed. I mean it's down on Williams Road, the Commissioner Chamber. I had to park in a field. There was no parking. There were people turned away, and must have been 300 or 400 people there, because people are becoming educated about these scams that are going on and are starting to push back. The next issue is going to be, this is going to turn into a political issue, Tom.
We have to take a break.
Okay.
But we'll be back and we'll pick this back up when we return.
I don't have a problem saying that in my observations, 2 of the commissioners are part of the special interest, and I won't name